Before we start the podcast, I just want to talk to you guys about Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast, and let me explain why. First of all, it's free, so you can get it anywhere, anytime, costs no money. Second of all, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, whatever device you choose. As well as that, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms. You can make money from your podcast too with no minimum listenership. That means a nobody podcast like mine can make money off of sponsorships. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So if you haven't tried Anchor or you want to start a podcast and haven't tried it yet, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.FM to get started.
You're listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast, hosted by Dylan Dillo Smith, Midwestern Ontario one and only MMA podcast, where we interview MMA fighters and voice actors like Sergeant Frank Woods.
What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Dillo's Dojo podcast. This is episode 4, and before we get into things, we got a lot to talk about today, by the way. A lot has happened this week, not only with events, but a lot of MMA news I want to talk about. It's pretty exciting. Maybe a long episode, maybe a typical, an hour episode, but there's a lot to talk about nonetheless, and I'm really excited to talk about it. But before we get into anything, I want to talk about something that actually happened last night during the Frankie, Edgar, and Pedro Munoz card. So during the, I believe, main card, Kamaru Usman came on the screen for ESPN to do his desk analyst duties, as one would, because they're hired by the company to do so. So because of that, we got treated to some Usman. Now, there was a group of people, jokingly at first, starting a hashtag fuck Marty, because the joke is, Kamaru's actual name is Marty or Martin. So a group of Kobe fans started that hashtag, and, all in good fun, all in good jest, as Kobe fans do. They're trolls. That's fine. That was innocent enough. But one fan, and I'm not going to name names, took it too far, and I wanted to address it because it made me uncomfortable when I watched it. It just, I'm not cool with this type of shit. You can jokingly hate on a fighter because they're your favorite fighter's rival or whatever, and you can say whatever you want about the fighter, but when you start overreacting and bringing race into it is when it just gets uncomfortable and it's not cool. And one fan and their significant other posted a video of them watching the fights, but the boyfriend standing in front of the screen and practically screaming at the camera, asking, "This dude is boring. What is this N-word with a soft A doing on my screen, ESPN? This guy's fucking boring." Now, the video seems harmless enough, other than the fact that he just dropped the N-bomb so casually like that. Not cool. That made me uncomfortable. And the way he said it was so vitriolic too, angry. And it could have been a joke, but nonetheless, I don't know. They were white. Probably as white as me, and I'm as white as they come. So what I don't understand is what made you think that was a good idea to post to the public? Because they got immediately clowned on. They quickly deleted the video. A lot of us, including myself, cataloged it. Some of them downloaded it. I screen recorded it. We got it quick. I'm happy how the community reacted. They weren't cool with that, and they got the video deleted quick. They ripped on this person's account real fast. But nonetheless, I'm still not cool with the fact that that video was made and posted, and that somebody of my color thought it was okay to post. that it was funny. And it wasn't funny. But I just wanted to address that because hating on a fighter is okay, but when you get even the slightest bit racist with it is just when I kind of get uncomfortable because it's not cool. You can hate on a fighter style and rip on the fighter style and personality, but like I said, once you bring ethnicity and nationality that they can't help, that's not cool. That's just something that I'm not cool with. And another thing I wanted to mention is, again, I'm not going to name names. I'm just going to generalize them. A lot of the popular kids of MMA Twitter decided to take a video of someone about from probably quite a few months back, probably half a year or even more ago, of them shadow boxing. And they were they were a bit heavier than they are now. But I mean, nonetheless, they still had good movement, flowed very good. But the popular kids, well, one popular kid of MMA Twitter, like I said, I'm not going to name names, retweeted it and ripped on this person for how bad and how heavy they looked, essentially, and just said, I don't want you to fucking get my back. I'd rather a toddler fight for me, that type of shit. And I thought because this person was kind of ripping on an old video that the context is the person actually, like the person in the video deleted off of their profile themselves, I believe. This person retweeted it, like, tweeted out, put the video out and then tweeted it to this person, like retweeted this person's other tweet with this video that they got off this profile after it was deleted, and went to rip on this person with it. And like I said, this is some like next level, like, gross, like you have a video from a while ago shit. And I was thinking the popular people of MMA Twitter were going to be pretty rational about it and kind of, be like, yo, man, this isn't cool. You can hate on people, but, taking a video that they took off, that they even deleted off their profile themselves, the fact that you're posting that to rip on them, that's just not cool. I thought it was going to be a lot of that, but no, they were all feeding into it and ripping on this person as well, like they were high school children. And it surprised me. So MMA Twitter is a mess. We need to be better people. I feel like I'm going to have to do this every fucking episode, but nonetheless, we need to be better. We're all fans of the sport. We can hate on each other's fighters. That's fine. But when we start hating on each other's looks and, them bettering themselves, that's just not cool, because you're just hurting a fellow human being at this point. That's just as bad as getting racist and shit, especially when you're hating on someone trying to better themselves. But anyway, I ranted about this for too long. I thought I'd let some people know what's going on. And I just want to say, let's be better. We can troll, we can have fun, but when we start actually directly ripping on the people and their, stuff they can't help or they're trying to better, that's not cool. That's not cool, and I'm not with it. Anyway, let's get into the actual news, the actual, not meat and potatoes, but kind of the meat and potatoes of this podcast, a little bit of it. The big news that happened Monday. So after the podcast, episode 3 was released, I said in the podcast that on the broadcast, DC retired, essentially. He's done. And that statement held true. Around Monday afternoon, he released that he is officially retiring from the sport, and he's going to continue his analyst duties, his, commentary desk duties, and his job with Ariel Helwani on DC and Helwani, that podcast, which is a great podcast. I would recommend it for anyone who's a casual to the sport and is listening to this. I recommend them especially because they're very casual friendly. They're both very funny. They work off of each other very good. But anyway, so he released on Monday afternoon that he officially was retired. He officially released a statement, I think on Instagram or something like that. It was a worded statement with a picture saying, thank you to the fans for all the years. It's not quite how I wanted to go out, but it's official. DC is done. I'm moving on to a next chapter of my life, that type of thing. And all was going well for DC. Everyone was on him. The attention was all on him. That was until the big bad wolf, Jon Jones, just decided to ruin DC's parade and come out and start posting a series of cryptic tweets, essentially, of him saying that it's official. I'm vacating my light heavyweight championship. And for those who don't know, Jon Jones is I'd say, pretty well-renowned light heavyweight champion of the UFC. He's never officially been defeated, even though his last fight, a lot of people argue he should have lost that one. But he has not officially been defeated. The only time he's lost his belt to DC is when he's been stripped and DC won it off of somebody else. As much as I love DC, that is true. He's never beat Jon Jones. The only time he's ever lost his title is when he's been stripped for his hit and run in 2015, his steroid metabolite test fail in 2017, and that's about it. You know, he's been the light heavyweight champion since getting it off of, I believe, Gus when it was vacant, when DC went up to heavyweight. So the guy is just an absolute great mixed martial artist. And, you know, we were kind of surprised to hear that he was vacating his light heavyweight championship title. A lot of us were thinking he was leaving the company. He was going to go do something else. Maybe he was going to seek free agency or go on to do a different sport, maybe boxing or something. I don't know. But then probably a couple hours later, he announced it. It's official. Jon Jones is coming to heavyweight, everyone. Jon Jones is coming to heavyweight. We are finally getting some of the matchups that we've been dreaming of, where we're going to get Stipe versus Jon Jones, maybe Francis Ngannou versus Jon Jones, maybe Derek Lewis versus Jon Jones. We're going to get some heavyweight killers against Jon Jones that would probably give him a little bit of time with this, you know, a little bit of harder time with the weight difference, but it's just exciting to see. And I personally think he might be able to kick it with the heavyweights. Jon is naturally in between the heavyweight limits. He doesn't walk around above heavyweight, so he's you know, he doesn't really have to cut much. I think it'll be a perfect opportunity for him, but no, it's exciting. So that, with that being said, the light heavyweight title is up for grabs, and that means that somebody has to win it. They have to unify it. And before I get into that, I just want to say that finally we have a date for UFC 253, the next UFC event. We are finally getting Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa Boranchinha on September 26th. So about 34 sleeps from recording of this podcast. I've been counting. But that being said, the first look at the card was very disappointing because all we got was the great main event of somebody's has got to go and somebody gets the champ belt. With Izzy and Paulo, and the rest of the fights on the card were meh, but the co-main event wasn't co-main event quality at the time. It was Kai Kara France versus somebody, and again, I didn't think it was quality, right? It was a quality co-main event. Then Tuesday, after I said that, or I didn't post it on my Twitter or anything, but when I saw it, that's what I thought. So the next day after I had that initial thought, we get surprised with something that a lot of fans wanted. Not they wanted Jon Jones with this guy, but nonetheless, we're getting Dominic Reyes versus Jan Blachowicz for the vacant light heavyweight title. It's gonna be awesome. A lot of people thought that Dominic was the light heavyweight champion after his fight with Jon Jones. A lot of people in the MMA community saw it as Dominic's win. He should be the champion right now. But now is a chance that he can prove that he truly is the guy that could have beat Jon Jones if Jon Jones had a rematch, by beating Jan Blachowicz very convincingly, I'd say. He has to really be able to withstand the Polish power, and I think he needs to make it very convincing. But nonetheless, we're finally getting a new light heavyweight champion that isn't Jon Jones or fucking DC. This is the first time in, I want to say 10 years, almost 11 years, that this will be the first time a light heavyweight champion is going to be crowned. And their names are not Daniel Cormier or Johnny Bones Jones. So that's a big thing in UFC history. This is the first time in UFC history in like 10 years that a different light heavyweight champion is going to be crowned. But yeah, we got that big news on Monday and Tuesday. And speaking of Tuesday, we had Dana White's Contender Series, and I didn't catch too much of it because I had to work the next day, but yet again, pretty much everyone got contracts, it seems. This has been a very historic year for the Dana White's Contender Series because pretty much every winner on the Contender Series has won a contract so far. There's maybe been one guy that hasn't gotten a contract, or one, guy or girl. But pretty much everyone who's won on the Contender Series this season so far has gotten a contract for the UFC. So that's something to look out for. People who want to see who might be the next big thing in the UFC should definitely check out Dana White's Contender Series. If you got Fight Pass or even have the free trial, check it out. It's on every Tuesday. People like Jeff Neal and the Sugar Show, man, the guy that a lot of people were hyped for at UFC 252 besides the main event. Sean O'Malley is a alumni of the Contender Series. He won on the first season, I think the second episode. He was the second person to receive a contract. So, the Contender Series has a lot of good potential power for people who are going to be stars in the UFC. But beyond that, let's talk about LFA 88, the main event. So, LFA was going to be a welterweight fight between Justin Willis and I forget the other guy's name already, but it was the vacant welterweight title because LFA is known as a feeder org to the UFC. And that essentially is an organization that kind of brings up prospects, kind of makes them champions, builds them up so they can come to the UFC and then get their stardom there. And it's no different here in LFA. Every time a champion wins, they go to the UFC almost immediately. It's happened at least twice this year, I believe. It's happened twice this year just with the pandemic. I can name 2 LFA champions or LFA alumni that have shown incredible prospect potential, and they've gotten their contracts. One was, I believe, Mike Rodriguez, who is also CES MMA and CFFC alumni as well. He actually fought last night on the Frankie Edgar card, and Vanessa Demopoulos, oh my god, that fucking name, the vacant 150 or 115 strawweight champ of LFA, immediately after winning her title, went to the UFC, fought her first fight in the UFC, and I don't think she boded well. I think she lost. But yeah, every LFA title winner so far has won at least a contract to the UFC. They at least get a chance in the UFC. Whether they get multiple fights, that's depending on what Dana feels or what the brass at the UFC and WMG IME or whatever it is. Or WME IMG is what it is. The brass there, whatever they think, but they usually get awarded a UFC contract after becoming a champion of LFA, at least because of this pandemic. So I constantly bring these guys up because you have to look out for these guys in the UFC. And the next one is Justin Willis, who actually did a very good job outpointing his opponent to win the vacant welterweight championship. But it was a weird scorecard. One judge, had it 49-46. The other one had it 50-45. And then the other one had it 48-47, which is really odd. It's not rare to see judges have completely different scorecards like that. It was really weird how all 3 judges saw a completely different fight. And that's just what I wanted to bring up. But apparently he was very, very, from what I remember, he was very, very impressive with how he just kind of nullified the wrestling and everything and just managed to outstrike. And honestly, like I said with Vanessa Demopoulos when she won, I think might be another UFC fighter. Maybe not a contender, but definitely a prospect. Definitely someone that Dana needs to build up, even though they're absolutely bad at that. But LFA has got some killer people coming to the organization, and that's definitely an organization you guys need to start looking out for. They have champions coming over all the time. Their output rate is insane. Like in their short 3 years, that night at LFA 88 were crowning their 5th welterweight champion. So they constantly feed out champions to the UFC so they can have their chance in a much bigger stage. But yeah, no, I just want to talk about that because, like I said, with LFA, they just keep bringing people in the UFC, and those are people that you need to look out for. Some of them become very successful. Some of them kind of very rare. You see them do extremely bad in the UFC, honestly. So that's why LFA is one of the better feeding orgs for the UFC. But with other news, Khabib had some potential talks, some different things this week to talk about. So for people who don't know who just Khabib is, I'm sure you do. Khabib Nurmagomedov recently, a couple weeks ago, suffered the loss of his father due to COVID-19. And ever since then, we haven't really heard much from him, but it's been confirmed that he will be defending his title against Justin Gaethje. And since then, there's been some talks what's going to be next for his legacy if he gets past Gaethje. And there was talks of a potential GSP super fight, and there still is talks about it. But there's one thing that's, always been in talks since I think he beat McGregor or even Dustin Poirier, is when is Khabib retiring and what record does he want to be when he retires? And it seems the more he talks about it, that he wants to end his career at 30-0. He wants to be one of those guys like Floyd Mayweather who ends their career without a single loss on their career, but he doesn't want to go for too much longer. He says he's done what he's wanted to do for his dad, win gold on the world stage and become the best in the world. And now he wants to go out on top very soon in the best of the world because he has nothing else to prove. And his plan seems to be he wants to get past Gaethje to get that 29th win. And then his 30th win, he wants to see and try to get it against George St. Pierre. And that's what I wanted to talk about near the ending of this half of the podcast is, how do you guys think that's going to fare out? Because GSP is a very good wrestler. And the thing is, he never used to be a wrestler. He was primarily a kickboxer, a karate, I believe. And he just, after his first loss to Matt Hughes, just out of nowhere developed this incredible wrestling that nobody's been able to completely beat. And I think, and a lot of fans think, is going to be a problem for Khabib. But the thing is, I feel like if, because they want to do it at a catch weight of like 160, I think, or 165. I think it's 160. I don't know if George St. Pierre is going to be good at that weight anymore. He's getting older, and if you look at him, he's fucking shredded. So he's got to have a lot of muscle weight on him too. And so that's going to be shedding a lot of water. He's going to be practically killing himself to make it down that weight. Well, Khabib's career has pretty much been at lightweight. He could easily make in between welterweight, easy as pie. So even though I think George St. Pierre is going to be a huge problem for Khabib, I think the weight cut would be a huge factor in that, honestly. But that's the thing. I want to know what everybody else thinks, honestly. I want people to just start, hit me up on Twitter at Dillo Ross and start telling me what you guys think, how that fight would go. It's just a potential fight. There really hasn't been much talks of it. Nothing's gotten too far. From what I've heard, though, from, episodes of DC and Helwani and from what, Khabib has said and stuff, it seems like George is he's interested. He's trying to get his management on board. He's trying to get UFC brass on board, but obviously Khabib needs to get past Gaethje first. And a lot of people are believing that Gaethje might be a problem for Khabib. And I do think he might be a problem because he's got the wrestling credentials to nullify those takedowns because he's got really good wrestling defense. But Gaethje hits hard. And even though Khabib has good boxing, Gaethje hits hard. And the guy has incredible cardio. So I don't know, man. We'll see. The thing is, though, Khabib's just so strong once he gets on you. Even Dustin Poirier thought it was going to be like that, where it was going to be easy to stuff the takedowns, hurt Khabib, do that. And then once Khabib got on him, it was like a bear just hugging you and it wouldn't let go. You just can't get out of it, right? So I don't know what's in the water over in Dagestan, but they just keep making killers. Chimaev, people like Fiziev, Khabib, a lot of people coming from Eagles MMA, Khabib's dad's gym. Just crazy. crazy shit coming from Dagestan. Those Russians have something in the water, and I want to know what it is. Whether it's like some radioactive fucking energy or steroids or something. Whatever it is, it's working because they've got some killers here over in the UFC. But anyway, let's talk about Bellator 244. We're going to talk about the main event because this was one that I was actually excited for. And I'm just going to say it now. I called it. I said it on Twitter. I told my brother the same thing because I was talking about it with him. Who did I think was going to win? Ryan Bader or Vadim Nemkov? Well, you got to put everything into perspective here before the fight even happens. Vadim Nemkov has been fighting at 205 very actively, very recently. Ryan Bader hasn't defended or even been down to 205 in 3 years, and it's his first time cutting down to that weight. It could be a problem for him. Vadim Nemkov also has incredible takedown defense in wrestling, but absolute killer striking, in which he showed that night. But I'll get into that in a bit. So it was like, who do you think is going to win? And I was like, I don't know. I think Vadim Nemkov has enough experience. He's being trained by fucking Fyodor Emelianenko. Like, goddamn. So I personally think, or I personally thought, because it's already happened, Vadim Nemkov was going to win. So when the fight happened, we were all watching it. There was a little bit of controversy. But before I get into the controversy, it was going to the second round, and Vadim Nemkov hit Ryan Bader with a head kick that sent Ryan Bader crashing down to the mat. And Vadim Nemkov started swarming him. Ryan Bader got up to the cage, started getting back to his feet. Vadim Nemkov hit him with a couple more strikes, dropped him back to his knees, and then started hitting him more and more. And it took his back and just kept hitting him with strikes. And a lot of people were like, I don't know how many strikes Ryan Bader took unnecessarily before the ref stopped the fight. It could have been like 50 strikes to the fucking head. But the ref took his sweet damn time ending that fight. Ryan Bader, I understand why he did, because if you look at the finish, Ryan Bader was done, right? But the thing was, he was also kind of moving. So in the ref's eyes, he could have been intelligently defending himself, right? But with how hurt Ryan Bader was, there was no way he was going to recover without Vadim Nemkov completely gassing out there. And it could have been a possibility because we saw that a lot last night. And again, I'll get into that later in the podcast. But I just wanted to talk about Bellator 244 because this Vadim Nemkov guy, like I've been saying, he's a protege of Fyodor Emelianenko, who was considered the greatest consensus MMA fighter in the world at some point, had a almost a 10-year unbeaten streak, almost I probably want to say 15-year unbeaten streak almost, until his loss in 2010 to Fabricio Verdum. He just was a complete machine, fought in all sorts of organizations overseas, killed pretty much everyone that came in his way. He was considered the beginning of the new breed of MMA fighters. He was an all-around mixed martial artist. So this guy being trained by Fedor was just, I don't know. Maybe that had a little bit of sway for me, but I just kind of felt like that kind of training and experience coming from Fedor helped him win that fight, especially since it's somebody that Fedor has fought before, so he could just be like, yeah, this is how Ryan Bader fights. But yeah, I was really surprised with the knockout, honestly. But man, Vadim Nemkov, I'm thinking he might be a problem for Corey Anderson if they give Corey Anderson that title shot immediately. But my God. But anyway, one more. Rumble Johnson's returning. I repeat, the man with dynamite sticks for hands, Anthony Rumble Johnson, is returning to 205 now that Jon Jones has ran away. I just wanted to mention that. It's nothing too important. I just thought it'd be awesome because now we're going to see some deadly fucking knockouts again. We're going to see him murder people unless he gets wrestle fucked. But yeah, it's just going to be exciting. But anyway, that'll be it for the first half of the podcast. In the second half, we're going to be getting into pretty much Munoz versus Edgar and Fight Circus. Going to be just quickly going over that as well, but mostly Munoz versus Edgar in the second half. But Fight Circus, before we get into that second half, just want to explain it is an event that was happening on a porn cam site. Yep. Yeah, that's right. And it was probably the only way I can explain it is peak MMA. It was an entire Tim and Eric awesome show skit. That's what it felt like when I was watching it. But anyway, we'll get into that second half now. I will see you guys when the ad is up. Let me tell you guys about Anchor. Anchor is a free to use podcasting platform. So if you guys have something you want to talk about to the folks of the world, you guys can use it free of charge. Anchor is also available on computer and phone. So even with your phone, you can go anywhere and make your podcast. You can edit as well. That's because Anchor has easy to use tools on the app that you can get to edit your podcast in any way that you would like. To get Anchor, you can go onto the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store to download the app today. Or you can go and check out Anchor on anchor.fm on the computer. That's ANCHOR.FM to get started on your podcast today. Welcome back. So I guess we'll talk about Fight Circus first, because I kind of left off the first half with that amazing introduction, that amazing description. So before we get into Pedro Munoz and Frankie Edgar, I guess we'll get into that. So after Frankie Muniz, oh God, no, not him. No, after the Frankie Edgar and Pedro Munoz fight, there was another event that happened on a porn site called Cam Soda. And it was called, it was from I think an event or a type of promotion over in Thailand called Full Metal Dojo. And it was called Fight Circus because it had 2v1 fights, intergender grappling, an average Joe fat guy versus a fucking 145-pound Muay Thai fighter. We had open weight MMA, midgets, and superhero costumes. It was, like I said in the description in the first half, I felt like I was watching one big Tim and Eric sketch on Adult Swim. It was retarded, and better yet, they were giving the losers. So the winners would get like, the whole, yeah, I won, it's on my record now type thing. And they got like a golden knife type thing. The losers got a bong because they were sponsored by a glass company. And I thought that was the funniest shit ever. So, even if you went in losing in these whack ass like circus fights, you still didn't lose. You came out with a free piece of pipe, man. But I thought that was hilarious that they were just giving away bongs to the losers. And, the funniest about this was I thought it was hilarious. It was happening on a porn site. So if you're not watching it in full screen, man, it'd be the weirdest thing to describe, or not describe, but explain to your family or your friends who walk in. Cause in the corner, you're just going to see where the cam girl is supposed to be, but it's an MMA event. And then all around previews for all the actual sex cams that this event is taking viewership away from. And I thought it was funny as fuck. So, and the best thing is this isn't the first time that Cam Soda has done this. This porn site has hosted an MMA event before, back in 2017, I believe. It was called Cam Soda Legends. We saw people like Charles Crazy Horse Bennett on the card, who got destroyed by some guy who, during the build-up, Crazy Horse made fun of the dude's dead brother for committing suicide. So it was pretty satisfying to see Charles Bennett get fucked up. But this was the second time, their second foray into making an MMA event. It didn't commercially sell the first time properly, but it became an immediate cult classic in the MMA community. Everybody brings it up, and they just blew it out of the park with this one. You'd expect what they did before. They get a couple of old legends on the card from like the Pride days and shit, and that would be understandable. No, they went full balls to the wall on this one. They're like, we don't need legends. We don't need big names. We just need kind of professional, semi-pro, amateur people, and we're going to make whack-ass fights. We had 2v1 MMA fights or 2v1 boxing fights where it was two regular guys who've never trained before against a heavyweight who's trained. We had MMA events that were open weight, where like a 170 is going against a heavyweight and stuff, like just stuff like that. Some old Pride rules shit. And it was ridiculous. And the best part about it was the commentators. The commentators, other than the intergender grappling event, where they were just making some pretty disgusting innuendos about the guy grappling with the girl, which, spoiler alert to anyone who hasn't seen the results yet or anything, the girl won. The girl fucking choked the guy out. But in several positions, it was almost like they were wanting the fucking grappling match to turn into straight porn right on stream, which would have been fitting for the site that it was on, but it was almost like they just wanted Buddy to just pull down the girl's pants and start fucking her right then and there. And I'm just going to say it made me uncomfortable listening to them commentate, because maybe I'm used to, a little bit of professionalism when it comes to commentators watching these events. So I'm sorry when the commentator is making some like disgusting sexual innuendos about a 19-year-old like little ass girl grappling with like a guy who's taller than her and kind of bigger than her, but around her age, and like making innuendos where it sounds like they just straight up want the guy to like fuck her, depending, or not depending, fucking whether she wants it or not, that type of shit. It just made me really uncomfortable. It's like they were just so fucking thirsty, man. Like they were horny, man. But anyway, the whole event was just ridiculous. The in-ring announcer, the guy who would be Bruce Buffer for the fucking UFC events. Oh my God, man. He was hilarious. He looked like some bearded guy that you'd see on an Adult Swim show. He came in with like this pinkish, purplish, like full piece suit, shades on. He was just relaxed and leaning back the whole time, making all these stupid ass jokes and making fun of the fighters that didn't have any experience and stuff, just ripping jokes the whole night. And it was just a complete different from the norm that you usually get with MMA. And when I say this shit was peak MMA, I think it was peak MMA. It's all downhill from here. We're going back to the professionalism of UFC and LFA and shit. But this event was just a nice break from the norm, I have to say. I mean, as bad as it is, because the way I'm explaining this, it sounds like some fucking psychopathic shit. It was a nice break from the norm. That's all I gotta say. Is it was a nice break of just a nice break away from what we usually see. We got to see some wacky fights for a night, despite them being on a porn site where literally every couple minutes somebody would tip the stream 69 tokens, and all yours, ha ha ha, 69, and it's literally an audio thing that goes off every single time it happens. So I'm sitting here watching a fight, relaxing, chilling in my chair, and all of a sudden you hear, just in the middle of the fight, a loud, like, out of nowhere, and for audio, like, headphone users, beware, ha ha, 69. Well, I mean, obviously not that loud, but still pretty fucking loud, man. Like, oh God, it comes out of nowhere. It's unexpected. It's so fucking stupid. I get it. It's a cam site. They're supposed to have these like fucking, nice little noises and stuff to get the boomers to want to tip to their favorite cam girl or whatever. But, you could at least go without that for an actual MMA event. We're already getting wacky shit enough. That just kind of took away from what I wanted to see. If it wasn't enough where like I felt uncomfortable with the way the commentators were talking during that grappling event, it was even worse where my immersion to the event was just completely ripped away when I heard ha 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 69, or some fucking, like, I think it's like a soda bubbling noise or something like that, or a bubble popping because somebody tipped, or I don't know, fucking an ad went off even though I'm in full screen show. It won't show up. Just stupid shit like that, man. It was like, I just didn't want to deal with that. But nonetheless, despise the fact that it was on a cam site made for boomers, and it was so fucking annoying with all the little audio cues with like everyone tipping and shit. I gotta say, it was a wacky ass event. We got so many like amateurs versus pros, and obviously you expect the pros to win, but it was funny to watch. The ring announcer was just cracking jokes the whole time. I thought it was hilarious that even though the loser lost, they still got a pretty damn nice looking bong every time they lost. I just thought it was fucking hilarious. And like I said, the jokes that the announcer was cracking to the average Joes, the amateur fighters, every time they'd come into the cage was just funny as fuck. And he would say it straight into the microphone too, so they could hear it. Say it straight to their face and everything. Like, no shame in this man. And like I said, it was just a nice break of the norm with the way that they were treating it. Other than the really awkward sexual innuendos that almost like were like, oh yeah, you want, like, these guys want to see a rape happen almost. Other than that, the event was hilarious. Like I said, it was like I was watching something off of Adult Swim. It was like Adult Swim was like, hey, we're having our own MMA event, but it's going to be the wackiest shit you've ever seen to fit in with our brand, and it truly fit in. It would have probably made better sense to air it on Adult Swim, honestly, but Cam Soda just as fucking fitting because it's a wacky ass cam site, I guess. The only time I'll ever use that site, I suppose, is whenever they host these MMA events. But like I said, I could definitely do without the actual little audio cues that the boomers on the actual site masturbating have to deal with, because I'm not there to masturbate and, get endorphin rushes from your fucking little noises, man. I'm here to just watch some violence. Like, leave me alone, man. But yeah, other than that, the event was hilarious. It was quite the difference from what normally is MMA that we see. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because it was something that I didn't even know about until probably a couple days before this podcast, before the event even happened. And I was like, oh, so I looked at the card and saw these wacky ass fights. I was like, oh, alrighty then. It was fucking awesome. So, definitely next time Cam Soda has an event like that, I will be promoting the ever living shit out of it. Just for those who want to watch the event, don't watch it around your family unless you're in full screen before they can even see anything else. Because if you don't watch in full screen or you don't go into full screen right away, you're going to have an awkward explanation to your family on why the fucking MMA event that you want to watch with them is on a porn site. But yeah, fun event nonetheless. I hope another one happens. Not anytime soon, but I hope another one happens. It was hilarious to see these wacky ass events. But just before we get into Edgar versus Munoz, I just wanted to talk about one more little thing that I forgot to talk about in the first half, and that is Paige Van Zant surprised all of us this week, actually. So, like I said last week, I think it was UFC 252, she lost. And there was a lot of talks on, what her next, her next feud was going to be, because she's facing free agency. The UFC wasn't going to resign her. She didn't want to resign with the UFC. She wanted to face free agency. A lot of people were thinking that she was going to go join her husband in Bellator, including myself. I thought that was going to happen as well. However, we got surprised. I probably want to say, I want to say we got surprised probably early this week. I'd say Monday, Tuesday as well with the rest of the news. I got to say, Monday, Tuesday was very busy for MMA fans for news. But anyway, she came out and announced that she did not sign with Bellator and I can't talk today, and go join her husband in dominating the Bellator roster as they want. No, she actually signed with Bare Knuckle FC. For those who don't know, because I know a lot of people probably won't know, Bare Knuckle FC is a bare knuckle boxing organization. They take a lot of UFC legends, a lot of ex-UFC fighters and stuff, amateur boxers and stuff, and they pit them against each other fairly, legally. They got good matchmakers. And a good president. But the sport in itself, my friends, is just barbaric and violent, and it's something I absolutely love. But it's an incredibly insane sport. We've got people with the only thing they have covering their hands is wrappings around their hands. I don't think their knuckles are covered, but the rest of their hands are covered. They're wrapped, and it's just these two people beating the fuck out of each other like it's a boxing match with their bare knuckles. And you see their faces afterwards. There's cuts upon cuts upon cuts upon cuts, like they got attacked by someone with a fucking knife. Like, it's incredible. We've had events with like Jason Knight and Artem Lobov, the guy who, was fucking Connor's Russian friend. And then we had Artem Lobov against Paulie Malignaggi. Anybody who doesn't know Paulie, he was a very well-known boxer, held a couple of, I think, WBO titles or whatever, but obviously fell off the map and then lost to Artem, who is not even a pro boxer. He's just an amateur boxer. He beat the fuck out of Paulie Malignaggi. Like, holy fucking shit. And it made me some money, which was awesome because everybody thought the pro boxer was going to win, right? So that was awesome. But yeah, no, BKFC signed Paige Van Zandt. Pretty, yes. PVZ, pretty blonde, Dancing with the Stars alumni Paige Van Zandt is going to get her face mushed up and bare knuckle FC against people like Beck Rawlings. Yes, she beat Beck Rawlings, but I just think Beck Rawlings is a different breed now in BKFC, man. I know she's with Bellator too, but like she's actually holds a title in BKFC. So it's exciting to see what's going to happen there. But that was definitely a surprise for people who were wondering what was going to be next for the good old Paige Van Zandt or, the Vanderford family. Getting on with the actual event, though, the one we want to talk about. I saw a lot of people sleeping on this weekend's UFC event. It didn't look like anything too special on paper besides the main event being Frankie Edgar and Pedro Munoz. The co-main event wasn't co-main event worthy. A lot of main card fights there, including, except for OSP, weren't really main card caliber fights, but nonetheless, we're getting fights during a pandemic and I'll take anything I can fucking get because I love MMA. But a lot of people were sleeping on this card saying it's going to be absolute trash. That's going to be garbage. And that's understandable, but I just got to say one thing to those people who slept on this card. You shouldn't have. I hope you didn't miss it. I hope even though you slept on this card, you still tuned in to watch, because anyone who decided, yeah, this event just doesn't do it for me as a fan, I'm going to skip this one, you missed out on a lot. Out of 9 fights, I believe we ended up with after 2 positive COVID tests. With 9 fights, only 7 of them were finishes. Only 2 of them went to decision. 1 fight on the prelims, which the fight that happened on the prelims between Carlton Minus and Matthew Semmelsberger. God damn, they put on a show, and it could have been an easy fight of the night contender. And then obviously the other decision, if you don't know the result by now, Frankie Edgar versus Pedro Munoz, and they won fight of the night for a reason, but I'll get into that. I just hope that you guys didn't skip this card because it ended up delivering and more. We had finishes upon finishes. The first fight of the night, we had probably a Darren Elkins comeback happen within the first fight, second round. It was, I can't remember the other guy's name, but Trevin Jones was against him. Oh, Timur Valiev and Trevin Jones. And in the first round, Timur Valiev was just completely piecing up Trevin Jones, like just beating the hell out of him, striking the hell out of him, had him hurt at the end of the round pretty bad. Like, a lot of us were probably screaming at our TVs, stop the fight, stop the fight, stop the fight. But Chris Tione did not stop the fight. Going into the second round, though, it looks like Trevin Jones is a little bit hurt, but Timur Valiev looks like he kind of gassed himself out a tiny bit trying to get the finish, because that's why we were all probably screaming at our TVs, was Valiev was fucking beating the hell out of him on the ground once he dropped him, trying to get that finish. But anyway, all of a sudden, we're in the second round, and they're, going back and forth, striking on the feet, and just out of nowhere, Trevin Jones hits this nice right hand as Valiev is circling into it, hits him right on the fucking jaw and drops him, and then just starts swarming him and knocks him out. It was like a comeback of the ages. We thought he was done. Even going into the second round, we thought he was done. And then all of a sudden, just with one punch, just like that, man, one punch just changed the course of the fight for Trevin Jones, and he won by TKO in the second round. It was incredible. And that was just the first fight of the night. The first fight of the night we got, folks. We had a lot of fights like this all night. We had Knockout City all night. We had maybe 1 or 2 submissions out of the 7 finishes. Pretty much all of them were knockouts, TKOs. doctor stoppages, whatever. It was a night to remember for a fight night, honestly. It delivered. For people who slept on this card, it delivered beyond expectation, way beyond expectation. I won't get into the Semmelsberger fight because it'd be too long, but we had other finishes on the card too here. Like we had people like Ike Villanueva getting finished by Jordan Wright, an LFA alumni who honestly radiates the same energy as Sage Northcutt. Don't at me. He radiates the same energy as Sage Northcutt. The man is a Labrador fucking retriever in a human's body. The man's too happy for his own good and too innocent and pure. But my God, that elbow that just flatlined Ike Villanueva, man. God damn. I didn't see it coming. I thought it was going to go to at least 2 rounds, 3 rounds. But Jordan Wright, man, just those clinches, like those knees and everything, man. Just brutal shit. And then we had Amanda Lemos versus Mizuki Inoue, and that was a fun fight, but nothing noteworthy. That was okay. Sorry, 3 decisions on the card. That was the other decision, and again, not noteworthy. The 2 fights that were more noteworthy were Minus and Semmelsberger and Edgar and Munoz out of the decisions, but the Semmelsberger and Carlton Minus one, the only thing I'll probably say is it was pretty much all Semmelsberger the whole fight. Hard hitting constantly. But anyway, we're going into the main card now, and that is going to be starting off with what was originally going to be, I believe, Takahashi Sato or whatever his name is, versus Daniel Rodriguez, but Sato tested positive for COVID, I believe, and Dwight Grant decided to jump in and take his place. So it was obviously, going into this fight, you take the fight on like a couple days notice or whatever. Because you're expected to fight someone else. You go through that training camp. You're training for everybody else. You're training for somebody else. You're training for a different game plan, different type of fighting style. So now, on one day's notice, you got to prepare for this guy. And Dwight Grant just didn't get it done. And immediately, Daniel Rodriguez just smashes Dwight Grant with a TKO. With a nice TKO. And then we go into the next fight, which was Maria Agapova versus Shauna Dobson. And my God, man, Agapova came out like she had just snorted 3 full lines before running out. She had like a coke rush out of hell. And then just it was like she was coming down. She was crashing in the second round. Because the first round, she beat the fuck out of Shauna Dobson and just dominated the first round, had so much adrenaline, and then it was so clear going into the second round, though, that she was gassed. The way that Shauna Dobson was moving compared to Agapova was completely different. Shauna Dobson felt calm and loose and looked like she had still a lot of energy to pull out there, and Agapova wasn't too gassed starting the second round, but was starting to kind of breathe a little heavily, and then by the end of the second round was breathing pretty heavily. The third round, she was slow, trying too hard for takedowns that wouldn't last too long, and it was a clear win. Like, it was a clear win going into the fucking second round, man. She tried to go for a takedown. Man. And then, like, something that you'd expect fucking Agapova to be good at, Shauna Dobson just completely dominated and just beat the hell out of her. Like, just hammered her head like it was a nail. Constantly. And it was probably one of the bigger upsets of the night. A lot of people had money on Agapova. And I think if you bet on Shauna Dobson, you would have won a lot of money. You would have won a lot of money on him. But the one that actually upset me the most was the next fight, which was Austin Hubbard versus Joe Salecki. It wasn't originally supposed to be on the main card, but they moved it on the main card after the OSP fight fell through because of the COVID test. This was like a day before, or maybe the day of, but they moved up to the main card. And after this moved up to the main card, I was actually excited for this fight. I'm not gonna lie. I like Austin Hubbard. For those who don't know, Austin Hubbard was the second half of Get Me Out of Here Gate, Max Rashkoff's controversy, where he was telling his corner he was done, he doesn't want anymore, and his corner was trying to convince him to stay. And then the doctor and the ref were like, hey, do you want to continue? And he said no, so he didn't. And then now recently Max Rashkoff got cut from the UFC because of that. I'm not going to give my opinions on that because I'm not a fighter, nor am I a coach or anything like that, so I have no place to say anything like that. But I was excited to see how Austin Hubbard would perform. And the first round started out very well. I will admit, Joe Salecki surprised me with how fast he was. And I was expecting him to just stand and bang, because he did say that he wanted to throw hands. He wanted to let his hands go more. But I think he realized Austin Hubbard hits hard and is good at striking. And so out of complete nowhere, he shoots. And Austin Hubbard defended it and did really good defending it. But they were in the clinch for a long time against the cage once Austin Hubbard got onto his feet. And then as they were in the clinch and Austin Hubbard was trying to get out of it, Joe Salecki kind of got the backpack stance on him, the patent Damian Maia backpack, where you get the figure 4 lock with your knees and you climb their back as they're standing and you're dragging them by their neck. He caught I don't think it was a full rear naked. I don't think it was under the carotid artery. I think he was squeezing down on Austin Hubbard's jaw, which is just as fucking bad. But nonetheless, he got the rear naked, and it was quick. It was like 3 minutes. I think almost 4 minutes into the first round. But yeah, no, Joe Salecki just completely blew my expectations. But tough luck for Austin Hubbard. But like I said, just completely blew expectations. And then the co-main event, like I said, a lot of people were saying, including myself, I said the co-main event wasn't name worthy. It wasn't co-main event worthy. But it delivered. It only went one round, but it delivered in just I think it only lasted 3 minutes, something like that. But so much happened in those 3 minutes. It started off with Marcin Prachnio, versus Mike Rodriguez. And Marcin Prachnio, fucking hard ass name. Trying to remember Prachnio. Marcin's easy. It's Prachnio, man. Prachnio. Fuck. See, Prachnio. I said Prachnio. But yeah, it started off with Prachnio actually coming out pretty damn strong against Mike Rodriguez, even dropping Mike Rodriguez at some point and battering the absolute hell out of him on the ground. But again, I don't know. I don't remember. I don't think it was Chris Taioni who was the ref this time in the co-main event, but the ref, whoever it was, let him survive, man. Did not end the fight probably when he should have, but it was good call on the ref, because Mike Rodriguez eventually got back up to his feet, got out of that position, recovered, and then just out of nowhere hits Marcin Prachnio with a nice fucking I think right hand or left hand, and drops him against the cage, starts battering him against the cage. Prachnio gets up, he knocks him back down onto his knees again, and it's clear Prachnio's out this time. And yeah, fucking Mike Rodriguez pulled off another fucking comeback, even though it wasn't like a second round comeback where he was getting dominated in the first round. It was all in the first round. So much happened in the first round in just under 3 minutes. It was crazy. The co-main event definitely delivered. That's all I'm going to leave it at, man. Yeah, the co-main event definitely delivered. But to cap it off, Pedro Munoz and Frankie Edgar went to war for 5 rounds. Both guys looked great. Pedro Munoz executed his game plan perfectly. I think he personally won, but I'm not mad about the decision that Frankie won via split decision. But I had Munoz winning because he started to run away with the strikes, with the significant strikes, despite how close they were in the later rounds. And he just kept closing off the cage. He had more octagon control than Frankie, I believe. And honestly, I thought Munoz won. But Frankie, man, I think 135, he should have been at 135 all along. I think he should have been at 135 this whole time. He is absolutely amazing at 135. He's quick. He's pretty nimble. He's aware. His strikes seem to hit harder. He just looks amazing at 135. It seems like this should have been his home at the first place. For those who don't know, Frankie Edgar fought at 155, 145, 135. He was actually the 155 champ and had a good stint at 145, fighting for the belt once against Max Holloway, only suffering 2 losses there. But yeah, no, Frankie Edgar looked amazing at bantamweight. And I think the fight to make next would be either Frankie versus Aldo, or again, could be another one at bantamweight, see who's the better one. Or a lot of people are saying Frankie versus Cruz. But we'll see what happens next there. But so that's it for the Munoz event. That's it for everything that happened this weekend. We'll cap it off now because I'm starting to run out of time here and I'm starting to run out of things to talk about. But definitely go watch that fight if you can. Munoz and Frankie put on an absolute show. So that's it for this episode of Dillo's Dojo podcast. We had a lot to talk about this week, but we're probably going to have a lot to talk about next week. We've probably got a lot of shit coming in since there's going to be a lot of cards to fill in the coming days. Probably a lot of big fights happening. But yeah, that's it for this week's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed listening. I hope you guys enjoyed all the news. And for those who are watching, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's full fucking thing of MMA. We had a lot of events. We had a lot of news, especially last night. We had some great events. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.
You've been listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast. Keep in touch with Dillo on his social media at Dillo Ross on Twitter and Dillo Ross on Instagram.